Hello, welcome back to Mark's Garden UK. I'm Mark and this is my newest olive tree. I bought that a week ago. I got it from the hospital section of a garden centre. Now David at Knowbridge knows there's nothing wrong with that, and I know there's nothing wrong with it. The only thing that's wrong with it is it's not really attractive enough to put on general display. So I found it buried deep in the corner of David's garden centre, and I asked him to sell it to me. I don't think he wanted to sell it to me because it's not in the best condition, and I know David takes a lot of pride in his plants, but nevertheless we agreed a price and I brought it home. So I'm going to rescue this in inverted commas. It doesn't really need rescuing. I get a lot of messages about olives, and the messages I seem to get quite a lot of are about olives losing the leaves at this time of year. It's springtime. We're actually at the end of April, and we've gone through a really bad winter. So it's not surprising that a lot of olives and a lot of trees in general have suffered. And one of the things I think that olives do when they go through a bit of shock to the system, is they drop the leaves. But they will come back. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to, inverted commas, rescue this. I'm going to repot it into this lovely terracotta pot, and I'm going to show you some of the steps that I take when I keep saying inverted commas rescue an olive. I'm going to put it in this pot. I've got some crocks, I've got some gravel, I've got some compost, I've got some general purpose slow release fertiliser. Now this is the interesting thing about this video, is I've got some routine powder here. I'm going to try something quite audacious in this video. I'm going to take some hardwood cuttings from this olive tree. I'm going to reshape it. I don't want it to be straggly like this. It's got a little bit lost in a way, and I want it to come back to a nice compact ball shape. And in doing so, I'm going to have to cut quite a few of these big branches off with my loppers. And when I do that, I'm going to have a go at creating some hardwood olive tree cuttings, and they will start off looking like trees because I'm talking about these thick branches here. They're over 1 centimetre thick. Will they take? It remains to be seen, but it's worth an experiment, isn't it? And if you want to know if they take, then subscribe and hit the notifications bell, because I will put an update as a card at the end of this video in about 6 months' time. And I'm sure it will take at least 6 months for these to take, if they are going to take. If they don't take, what have I lost? Nothing, because they would go in the compost otherwise, wouldn't they? So let's get on with it, and I'll tell you and I'll talk through what I'm going to do with this olive tree. And the first thing is I'm going to take it out of that plastic pot and have a good scrape at the roots and reveal the rootstock before I repot it. And then I'll show you how I repot it. The key thing with, in my opinion, olives is drainage. Think about their native climate. It's dry, it's hot, it's well drained, it's rocky, infertile soil. Nevertheless, they still live for hundreds of years. Have a look at my video, by the way, about Knowbridge, because I called that video I Found My Olive Tree Heaven. They've got some amazing olive tree specimens there. Outside of my price range, I have to say. This one will do me for now. So let's get it out of this pot and have a good look at the roots. So out it comes. I bought this simply for the thickness of the trunk. Look at that, it's an amazing trunk. It's already, what, 2 or 3 inches thick. That's an old tree, that's very mature. I'm delighted to get my hands on a tree that has a trunk as thick as this. Now, let's have a look. I'm just scraping off this spent compost really, so that when I do repot it, it's going into some fresh compost and it'll have a better chance of survival. But some lovely roots here. Nothing wrong with these roots. I'm going to try something that I've not tried before. I'm going to get my secateurs and just trim a few of these roots, in the hope that, again, another one of my experiments, in the hope that damaging them might stimulate some growth. I'm looking at the roots. They're not rotten, they're actually clearly very alive. So let's just trim a few of these away and see what we can do. I'll turn it over the other side. I'll just go at it a little bit, not too much, just a little bit. It doesn't want too much of a shock, but I will be taking quite a bit off the top in a bit, so that will redress the balance between root and plant above the ground. So, quite pleased with that. Looking forward to getting that into a new home in this terracotta pot. Let's put it to one side for a moment. All this spent compost, I could riddle this and use it for cuttings, because cuttings have their own little store of energy, but I'm going to be putting that in the bottom of my new raised beds as a kind of filler. Right, let's get this plant pot ready to receive its new host, its new plant, its olive tree. Big pot there, quite a big space inside there, but I'm going to take up quite a bit of that space now, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to line the bottom of this with crocks. We call these crocks. They're actually bits of broken terracotta pots, and all they do is they allow the water to go through the drainage hole there, but to stop the soil from going through. I'm putting quite a few in the bottom. I'm going to break that one in two actually. Let's give that a bit of a whack just to break it. And there you can see I've lined the bottom of that pot and I've covered the hole up. Hopefully you can see that in the bottom of there. Now, what I always do as well, as a kind of a belt and braces approach, just to hold them in place, and to act as a bit more of a filter, a further filter to stop the soil from going through, is just a little layer of pea gravel. And again, that just lets the water through, but it stops the soil. And it aids the drainage. This plant wants drainage. Talking about drainage, when I water my olive trees, I've got several and I've had them for about 10 years, some of them, I give them a really good soak and then I almost let them dry out again. So that's the base of the pot ready. Now I'm going to prepare some planting medium, which is going to consist of compost, multi-purpose, which I will enhance with some extra drainage. So here's our compost, good rich compost there. Let's put a bit on there, and what I'm now going to do is add some perlite. Perlite will improve the drainage. Now, if you're going to be dealing with perlite, do it on a dry day, a day where there isn't much wind, because it's very light and it'll blow away. If you want to know the difference between perlite and vermiculite, there's a little video on my channel. Let me go and get the perlite. So there we go, perlite, bright white stuff, very very light, it's like polystyrene, and it would blow away if it was windy. And I'm just going to gently mix that in as if I'm kneading some dough or making a cake. And what that does is it helps to aerate the soil, which allows the soil to have oxygen in it. What surprised me once was when I learned the fact that actually plants often need oxygen at their roots, not just water. They need to breathe through the roots. I'm going to put a bit more in. There we go. Put that in there. And again, it's breaking up the soil, it's aerating the soil, it's aiding with drainage, and that will really help. Now, another thing I'm going to do now is not too much, just a little bit, is a little handful of slow release, because it's in a pot. It's not got access to the general ground around it. So incidentally, there's links to this slow release and the perlites in the description box below this video, and you can buy them if you want through Amazon. And if you do, I do earn a commission, and I thank you for your support, because it goes towards projects in my garden. Little tip on the perlite: buy it in bulk, it's a lot cheaper. Right, so there's our mix all mixed up. Now I'm going to put a layer of that in the bottom of the terracotta pot where the olive's going. So in it goes, directly on top of that gravel that you've just seen me put in the bottom of this pot. I'm just going to put it in a nice little layer underneath. Now I'm going to offer this up now. This is the olive tree, obviously. I want this to have about an inch above the top of the plant, and I won't be planting it any deeper than it was originally, but I want the top of the plant to be about an inch or two, more than an inch if you wish, below the top of that. And the reason for that is, I mentioned earlier, I give them a good flooding every time I water them, then I let them dry out. If you plant it up at the top, there's no chance of flooding it because the water just runs off. So whenever I put a plant in a pot, I always put it a little bit lower than the top. Having said that, it can afford to come up a little bit, so I will put a little bit more of our mix in the bottom. There we are. And that just lifts it up a little bit. Now that is going to be about right. Now, I want this to be vertical, and a little tip when you're making a plant vertical, well, obviously I'm going to pack it in with, backfill it with some of this first, but before I actually firm it in, step away. Go away from it and look from several different angles. From this close, I can't tell if that's vertical or not. Anyway, let's get this soil inside there. Now, I might not have done enough, so I might need to make up another mix, but for now, let's just get this in. Some on that side. And some on that side. Not quite good enough here, so I'm going to make up another mix. I'll see you in a second when that's done, and I'll talk to you about how I dress the top of this, and then we'll do some pruning and we'll take some of those big cuttings I mentioned earlier. Oh, look at that. I don't know what you think, but I think it looks better already. I'm delighted with that. Let me tell you what I'm going to do next. I've left a good inch around the top, and you'll see why in a minute when I give it its first water. But the next thing I'm going to do, in the same way as I've done with my bay trees and these other little olive trees. By the way, this olive tree here, there's a story behind it. I bought two. I rescued them both. They both recovered very well, and then I've done an experiment on this one. Let me show you. I'll bring it to the front. I'm trying to kill it. I'm trying to see how robust these olive trees really are. I've pruned everything off it, and I've got a control here in a sense that I've got another one here that wasn't pruned, and we'll compare the two. We'll see how one does. But that one there, I've left one leaf on it, and we'll see how it gets on before the end of the summer. I want to know if pruning them back to virtually nothing kills them, or actually does them good by helping them to produce lots of new growth. And we'll see on that one. You'll find that video on my channel. Right, gravel, top dress. Why am I doing it? Well, several reasons. Firstly, it's transformational. It makes the plant look brilliant the minute you put that gravel on. The second thing is, it suppresses weeds, and weeds are competition for the plant. There's a limited food resource in this pot, so it suppresses those weeds. And it also, well, it gives it a little bit of ballast, it weighs it down, but it also helps retain water on those very, very hot days. It stops too much evaporation from the top. So there we go. When I water that in, that will be a transformed plant. So there we go, that's the bottom half taken care of. Let's deal with the top half. And I mentioned I'm going to do some pruning. We're beyond any risk of frost. I think we had our last frost last week. And this is going to be positioned right here against this hedge. The sun comes up over there, it goes overhead, and it goes down over there. So this will be in a sunny, sheltered place for the foreseeable future. And as I think I've already said, I'll update you on a regular basis on this. But let me get me loppers to this now, because I'm going to do those audacious cuttings. And you'll see what I mean by audacious in a moment, because they really are going to be. In fact, quick change of plan. I'm going to use this compost for my cuttings. I'm going to put that tilth in that was already in these pots waiting for them. I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and then I'll have a bit of organic and a little bit of well-drained tilth, and we'll use that. Quick change of plan there, but never mind. I see gardening as quite experimental, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you always learn. So in a sense, you do always win. I'm rambling a little bit here while I fill these up. There's our pots ready. Here's our loppers. They've been sharpened, they're quite clean. And let's go in now and take some rather large cuttings from this. I'm going to step back and have a look at the shape of it. I want it to come back to a bit of a ball, so I can afford to lose all the top of this. I'm going to get my rooting powder open. And that's there, that's ready and waiting. What can I lose by doing this? Absolutely nothing. Diagonal cuts so that the rain runs off And now I shall also remove quite a lot of the excess twigs to give it a bit of a balance. I'll leave that one on because it's got a leaf on it. Will it or won't it? Well, we'll soon see, and you'll soon see if you come back and subscribe and hit the notifications. Then the rooting powder straight in. I'll put 2 in each one, and then I will leave them, and I'll try and be patient, and I'll try not to go anywhere near them. I'll just keep them watered. Let's get a couple more. I'll do 6. I might end up with 6 little olive trees, you never know. So there we are, a repotted olive tree, 6 hardwood cuttings, and I'm just going to do some finishing touches to the pruning of this olive tree just to give it a bit more shape. It will start growing from the leaf node below where I prune, and I've done this before, and I know that you can be quite aggressive and not worry too much with these olive trees. And I want this to be have a more compact habit, so I'm going in, I'm taking away any dead ones and any that actually cross over as well, so they're not rubbing against each other. We're heading into the end of spring, soon be in summer, and this will have a lovely full season of summer to grow back. And if you want to see it growing back, and if you want to see the updates, obviously it goes without saying, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. A good way to see if your olive is still alive, cut a few branches off and look at the cross section, and it will show you it's still alive, because you will find green growth on the cross section. If the twig is dead, obviously it's going to be brown and dead looking. The leaves gives away the fact that these are actually alive. Hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you found it informative and interesting. I'll see you soon for some more olive tree adventures. I'm particularly interested on how those cuttings are going to take. Bye for now.